So Sam, I gotta ask you, what if there was gonna be a movie about Jamie Gold or Daniel Weinman losing all of their winnings? What would it be called?
Losing all of their winnings.
Yes, what would it be called?
I have no idea. What would it be?
Cheaper by the dozen million.
Cheaper by the dozen million. I like that.
Welcome everybody to the latest episode of the Two Fish at the Table Poker Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Legend of Ben One on Poker Stars.
And I am your other host, East Coast Sam. Welcome to our end of the main event episode, as well as a review of Jamie Gold. That's right, the 2006 main event champion, the original $12 million man himself, the original all-time main event winner, possibly. His Twitch streams, which he made with WSOP.com, really didn't get too much press. I mean, I just kind of stumbled across them randomly. I think it might have just been Googling Jamie Golden, his name popped up. But we're going to give a review of them as well as our thoughts on the main event.
Yes, and then we have one other surprise that we will save for the very end of this episode. But first things first, our last episode, we were up until the final 15 of the main event, heading into day eight, the added day eight due to the size of the field. And this was kind of the first act of the conclusion of the main event, followed by a 2 day long final table. Day one of the final table, they played from nine down to three, and then day two, three down to a winner. And I wasn't expecting this, but I actually kind of found the events of day eight to be more entertaining than the final table itself. So with 15 players left, we have one table of seven, one table of eight. We had uh, we knew the stack sizes ahead of time. I had mentioned how I kind of tend to root for the bottom, bottom crew, see if any of them can kind of move their way up to the top, and then I was really entertained by some of the almost like communal like chips, like hand stalling and like table talk and sort of particularly with Alec Torelli. So there was a lot of moments that I really appreciated as we were getting down to the final hurdle before the final table. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I was able to watch it live, thankfully, and it was just very crazy to watch. Yeah, a lot of, everybody just kind of, as you said, I don't want to say they were colluding
Right.
to, keep each other in, but yeah, I mean, proposing that they play hand for hand at one point, which actually I don't mind as an idea. I think that should be something they should consider in future years. Kind of just slowing the action down. A lot of people find Alec Torelli a bit of a controversial figure. I mean, he had that instance involving angle shooting, kind of, sort of. It's a bit of an ambiguous example. And, also that he kind of has a bit of a, sanctimonious attitude, perhaps a little, that spot with Queen Nine where he's just like where he's just sitting there for like 5 minutes, talking the whole way through. I mean, I can understand that rubs people the wrong way, but I don't mind stuff like that because I consider it to be entertaining.
Absolutely.
We'll get into a very entertaining, talkative player, of course, a little bit on this episode.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, we got to talk about Jacks versus Queens versus Kings, right? I mean, I saw that hand live. I could not believe it. It was just, and now knowing that Weinman has won the main event, spoilers everyone, that's got to go down as one of the sickest hands in the history of the main event.
Yeah, it's funny how usually every few main events at the final two tables juncture, there's usually just some bizarre, crazy hand that shapes the events to come afterwards, whether it was Billy Kopp's blow up against Darvin Moon, maybe even like Scott Abrams in 2012 against Jesse Sylvia, pretty much giving Sylvia the chip lead heading to the final table. There's usually some big showdown that, one big hand runs into another. And in this case, yes, you're right. That Wyman hand, very crazy, kind of a sequel to the Bill Klein hand from a couple days prior in that main event. And again, they really got some great bad beat hand runouts on those featured tables this main event. So I think I don't know, maybe I'm just biased, but it definitely felt like this year had a greater number of crazy runouts compared to years past.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that Jack came on the turn and not on the flop, so Weinman was 10% to get there, and he gets there. And just, I mean, the look on Payne's face after that happened, I mean, it looked like someone had punched him in the stomach. I mean, it was just insane to watch, like, because I was pulling for Payne because he was 23 years old. He's younger than I am. I mean, he's one of the real amateurs left in the field, and just to see him go out like that. But also, I thought Wyman handled it very well. I mean, he was appropriately very, shocked and surprised, but he didn't, hoot and holler and rub it in people's faces. He shook Payne's hand afterward. He definitely knew that he got lucky. But yeah, I mean, just insane to watch live. When that jack came up on the turn, I was just like, oh my God.
Yeah, and there were really three things I was taking note of on that day 8. One was my informal, horses in the race. Again, weaker horses than my years past, whereas I barely knew these players, to be fair. Toby Lewis being one and Torelli being the other one. I was rooting for Kong Pham because, again, he was super short stacked on day 7, and then managed to at least go from 15th place with 15 left and make it to the 12th spot. So one page jump there, and obviously a few notches on the historical rankings of how he fell. And then again, yes, you mentioned the Queen 9 hand of Torelli, where he makes a pretty good fold with like 5 big blinds against Ace 9 pre-flop. Queen 9 is above the Queen 7 composite hand average, so it's not a particularly easy fold when you also have the big blind ante to take into account there. And it was funny. It felt like even more than say the Joe McKeon, that we had like a few like super short stacks at the bottom, and then just these 100 million plus stacks at the top. Like the delta between the top and the bottom of the field was even more pronounced this year, and obviously even worse by the fact that the short stacks were really just like hanging on like a Phil Hellmuth style, like 4 big blinds is okay by me if I'm still in sort of mentality there. And so it was a little unfortunate that all those super short stacks couldn't really make it to the final table, but it was a unique dynamic having all those short stacks, because again, when there's like 3 short stacks with like 5 big blinds, you see these weird hands where like just spots that seem like an instant shove in any other situation change dramatically when you have again a page of every 2 eliminations, or obviously the final table bubble looming. So that was really entertaining. And again, it was that angle that I think really elevated this day 8 action to be one of my favorite stretches of action in this entire main event.
Speaking of the final table bubble, I mean, going into it watching 10-handed, I'm like, okay, Maceras he's going to go to the final table as a force. He seemed like a really experienced guy. And there was actually like a 20-minute stretch when I was watching him play on the final table bubble where I was saying to myself, oh my God, he's going to go from the chip leader being out in 10th. And it's just, and it's weird, like describing it as a meltdown, because I guess it is a meltdown, but it's also like he didn't play too many hands out of line. I mean, Walton was being very aggressive toward him. Jones, I also think, picked up a couple pots against him. But I mean, it was just crazy watching that. Speaking of deltas and 10-handed action, I mean, that was crazy.
Absolutely, and it was kind of on theme with the year prior, where Matthew Su was chip leader with 9 left and went out 9th because there was such a long sort of bubble with the final 10, and so the blinds got up so that a few all-ins pre-flop, one bad run out, boom, you're out in 9th. Unlike Philip Hilm, who was first, but then sort of like lost it in huge chunks. Again, yeah, Maceras, it's funny. I kind of facetiously, but really just kind of for my entertainment, I tend to root against the chip leader with 10 left, because it's just kind of fun to see some bizarre things happen. I mean, when the bottom stack goes out in 10th, it's just not all that fun for me when I don't have a particular rooting interest in one player in particular. So again, nothing against Maceras. It's just that it's kind of fun to see chips spread around the table, and maybe again, anger in poker, I don't want anyone to be hurt or upset, but it's when someone gets a little tilty, it's entertaining for me in a detached emotional level versus like personal.
Yeah, and his body language changed so much, and his table talk changed. Like at one point, he tells Walton, like, "Oh, I spotted a tell on you," and even the commentators are like, "Is he just saying that? Did he actually spot a tell?" Like it was just crazy. Like when he comes back to the final table, he just seemed so diminished before he busted an 8th. Crazy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so again, I was very entertained by day 8, which got us to day 9 being the final table part 1. And the only player that I knew in any capacity whatsoever was Toby Lewis, unfortunately in the short stack with about 20 million. And much like Maceras, he had a pretty rough end of day 8 where he just got blocked a couple of times by Walton, and could have easily had maybe like 30-35 million had he made one read differently. But pretty substantially behind even 8th place, who had more than 10 big blinds on him. So I was hoping that he wouldn't go the Ben Lamb route where he just kind of like, I'm guaranteed this. I'm just going to go for the win and go for a quick, easy double up. And that didn't quite happen. I mean, he did chip down a bit at the start, and then he kind of won a couple of hands to kind of stay afloat. While Walton was the chip leader with the final table beginning. And this final table, I was surprised we didn't have anyone in their 20s at this final table. They mentioned at the top of the broadcast. It was all players in their 30s or older, which I wonder if maybe this could be a changing of the guard in the poker world. Maybe the era of the slick youngster. I don't know. It could have just been a coincidence too. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
I mean, Payne was 23. I can't remember who. Torelli was obviously older than 20. I don't remember how old Aguilera was. Yeah, I mean, it seemed like it was fairly old running deep this year. Who knows? It might just be a fluke. Might be, next year. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. And so again, when I'm watching a final table like this, and I don't have any one particular player I'm all for. I like some chips shaking up. I want to see the top stacks fall down. I want to see the big stacks come up. And collectively speaking, again, I was a little bit let down by this final table in that the bottom three stacks to begin the final table were among the first four out. Again, luckily not quite a 1-to-1 ratio of bottom three to first out, thanks to Maceras' continued downswing. And then the top three stacks to begin all made it the top three. So again, it's not very dynamic of a final table. I think back to my favorites, 09, 2010, even 2018, 2016, you had a lot of chips flying around. We had, but in this case, I was let down by the net result. I wasn't bored watching by any means. I just mean like looking at the entire package retrospectively. I like seeing some more chip shakeups. I like seeing some swings on the chip counts. I didn't quite get that. Besides Maceras' downtrend.
Yeah, I mean, Lewis managed to ladder into seventh place.
The cursed seventh place. The curse continues, man.
Yeah, the seventh place always just seems to be the one that Ben and I are, the player that we like the best, the player that we have most interest in. Yeah, I mean, some people have talked about his spot with the King Jack, sort of a squeeze play. I personally would have waited, but I'm the tightest player in the world, so. Yeah, Holzner, I'm glad, he doubled up at one point, but, he was sort of he was the guy that I was rooting for the most because he was eighth in chips and he was the least experienced player. And I just thought like Holzner Lewis heads up would have just been legendary if that happened. But, he seemed like he had a good time, seemed like a nice guy. So, no problem with him finishing ninth, I guess. And then Dean Hutchinson, who got sixth, just really was just card dead the whole time. There were maybe a couple spots we could have taken advantage of, but he just seemed to be the one that just ran the worst. Again, managed to ladder up into sixth place, so good for him. But
yeah, and again, I did feel like, given I'm a bit more mature as a poker fan, I kind of locked into all nine players. I did feel like I was tracking how their final table was going, whether they were folding their way to sixth place or being maybe a little bit over creative or overactive with their chips, like Walton might have been in a few times. I thought Yachman played, we got off to a very good start at this final table, and then what was kind of a trend for the back half of the action, just a lot of overambitious, over dramatic plays that led to very swift bust outs, which made this entire final table a much swifter experience than I was certainly expecting, given how many big blinds were in play.
Yeah, I mean, I stopped watching on day one of the final table when there were 5 left. So Predict was the short stack. Yachman was in second place. And I was really liking Yachman, and I'm thinking he seems like a slick guy. He's talking at the table. He seems like a nice guy. Like, he's going to win this. And then I, logged onto my computer the next day. I'm like, what? He busted in fourth? They kept playing and he busted in fourth? Yeah, and he said after the fact, like, oh, I was thrown off by how they announced they were going to keep playing. But it's like, dude, you're just playing for so much money. I mean, you gotta gear back in. You can just keep folding if you want. Fold till you get aces and then play a hand. So that was really disappointing to see him bust in fourth. But yeah, I mean, again, going into day two, I mean, I liked Weinman and Jones and Waltman. I thought, those three seemed fine. All three of them seemed to be playing decently well. So I was curious to see how day two turned out. Predict, yeah, just kind of seemed to be, not that he was a bad player, but yeah, kind of like Hutchinson, not really catching a lot of cards, just sort of folding his way into fifth place. So.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And, it's funny you mentioned that you kind of liked Jones and Weinman and Walton. I kind of thought that Jones and Weinman had the least unique sort of table presence, or maybe
Yeah.
they're just kind of there, and they had a lot of chips. I mean, Wyman obviously was the beneficiary of the jacks, queens, kings hand, but I don't know. I wasn't again. I wasn't rooting against them, but I wasn't. I was just kind of like I was like, they're still in. I was rooting more for everybody else because you mentioned Pride Duck and Hutchinson kind of feeling other place, and because they kind of felt overmatched, I was kind of reverse rooting for them because at least then it's kind of fun to have someone kind of outmatched and make it towards the end. And again, having the top three stocks make the final three not very dynamic or very unique as far as the outcome of the final table. And so again, I didn't really have anyone I was rooting for in particular with the final three. And this entire day 10 only lasted like a little over 2 hours, so just over a level. And when you factor in there's a small break between final three play and final two play, and that they had a level during this, had a break during in between the level break. It was like probably the shortest final day of the main event ever. Probably, I mean, it was a very strange. I mean, we've seen some very short heads-up play matches like David Williams and Greg Raymer, but I don't know. I just wasn't really feeling this day 10. I mean, obviously there's $22 million at stake here, and both Walton and Wyman have had some pretty deep runs in the main event the last couple of years, so they were not out of their elements making it deep in the main event. But I don't know. I was enjoying watching, but I just wasn't really. I thought it was just kind of a meh ending for me.
Yeah, I mean, same here. I when I say I like them, I mean I think that they're nice guys. I wasn't rooting for them per se. Like that's just
Right.
what I mean.
I
Like they're
understand.
just
I mean, almost everybody in poker is a nice guy. I mean, we're not when we say we're rooting against somebody, or we're sort of naive, like sort of like sarcastic for somebody. It's really the vast majority of players. I'm fine. I'm happy for them as long as they don't. There's obviously there's bad people in the poker world. There's criminals. There's scammers. It's whatever. But the majority of them are not. So I want to shut down any sort of rumblings about that. But yeah, I mean, again, I'm happy for Weinman. He had like 3 million plus in winnings before this main event, so he's not. I'm sure a good number of the poker world knew who he was before he won. I never heard him though, so it almost felt like, oh really? He's kind of a big deal, huh? I'm surprised.
Yeah, he was a previous bracelet winner. He won 2 WPT events in 2017. He had Josh Ari on his rail. He had like a murderer's row of people on his rail. Yeah, I mean, Weinman's win. I mean, he came into the final 3/3 in chips. So, it's kind of nice that like, he was, I guess, a slight bit of an underdog getting there. But yeah, I mean, Walton just punting off with eights when Weinman has aces. I mean, that was insane when I watched that live. I thought I misheard him when he said all in. I thought he said call or something. Like I just couldn't believe my ears, and then just to see that happen was just insane. I mean, people were saying that they must have made a deal in order for that to happen. Like, I think he just got over aggressive.
Well, the fact that we had an over aggressive Yachman, Walton, and Jones kind of all not going out the same way because the mechanics of the time was different, but kind of in similar, like just all in these like bizarre spots, calling off or over shoving back to back to back. I mean, it makes for a much faster final table. And there is definitely a shock factor there, but it meant that the heads-up match between Weinman and Jones was kind of a non-starter. I mean, Jones made a little bit of ground at the start and then kind of chipped down until he finally went out. I mean, obviously, when you flop top pair heads up, it can be really hard to fold it. But I don't know, with Jack 8 as an 8 kicker, I don't know. I feel like, I don't know, I might have folded in that spot.
I would have. Yeah, I mean, and also just the mechanics of what happened that Wyman bet like 36 million, I think, and then Jones tanked for like 5 minutes, and then he goes all in, and Wyman stands up and asks for a count, and then Jones says it feels good to fade the snap call, which is just bizarre. Like you could tell like the look on Wyman's face when he hears that, like he was calling no matter what after that. I mean, it's just very odd that happened the way it did. Yeah, I mean, just I'm not trying to put down Weinman or anything, but this definitely felt like a final table where everyone else lost instead of Weinman winning.
That's a good way of putting it. Absolutely, especially with those final 3 bust out to the final table. Obviously it's Holzner and Maceras and Lewis and other situations a little bit different, but definitely like I joke that an amateur can win the main event because players can just line up and give them all their chips. And I'm not calling Wyman an amateur by all means. He's great player. Obviously now his profile is only going to increase. But when players are just kind of forfeiting their rights to millions of dollars up the pay ladder like that, You can't help but feel like, players like Greg Merson, who just played absolutely amazing, and Wyman played great, but Merson, I feel like, just by comparison, was a different level as far as his poker acumen at the time. And so again, Wyman will probably rank lower on my hierarchy of like favorite wins, favorite winners. I mean, I'll still root for him next year in the main event and stuff like that. But I mean, that's just my thoughts here. Again, I'm just all about comparing main events to each other. I'm not talking about the players personally. There's just a distinction I want to make sure everyone's getting at.
Yeah, I mean, and again, we recognize that poker is substantially luck based, and so our entertainment value from poker is just random chance, right? Like it just so happened that you had the last three butt stats be like this, and as Ben mentioned, there's a sort of shock value behind it. But in the long run, it's not super entertaining. Like we recognize that there's kind of a random variable involved. But yeah, I'm with you. I mean, this final table has to be toward the bottom of the pack for me. It's hard to rank them.
Target rank him, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, Wyman seems like a nice guy. I'm happy for him. He's paid his dues. Apparently, he went back to work as a software engineer right after winning the main event, which I think is pretty cool. It's like he knows where his head is. He knows where his heart is. He's not gonna, blow the $12.1 million. But yeah, it's just, I can't quite give this the full outside of its just shock value of Walton punting off and Jones punting off. So,
and Yachtman too.
Yeah, I know.
A punt too. So with that, Wyman now has the biggest main event prize won, just above Jamie Gold. There was an article on Poker News that broke down how much all of the final table will pay in taxes on their winnings. And again, with the non-American players, obviously other countries have different tax levels, some none at all, and some maybe considerably less than America. So it's kind of funny to see, if you want to going to check that article out, probably just how sometimes someone who placed lower ultimately takes home more money because of their country's tax rate. So again, that's kind of cool. And again, with Wyman, he probably paid like 4.5 million in taxes. And then if you had any backers, obviously. So, it's not inconceivable that he pocketed a similar amount of money that Jamie Gold got in 06. I'm not sure if the tax rates would have been higher or lower 17 years ago. I assume they'd be maybe a little bit lower. I'm not sure. But on that not so subtle segue, we want to move on to our next topic here. Sam and I, we go back and forth suggesting topics for podcasts. And Sam's, this was from a while ago, before even our Vegas trip, he found these Twitch poker streams on the WSOP.com account by Jamie Gold called Go for Gold. So these were 4 fairly lengthy live streams by Jamie Gold playing in various WSP.com events. I think not all of them, but I think 3 of the 4 included him playing in an online bracelet event on a Sunday. And so, Sam, I'll let you, since it's just kind of your idea, I'll let you do the first section of our talk here. What's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so these are unedited sort of streams where he's playing bracelet events. He'll take little 5-minute breaks, or sometimes more than 5-minute breaks when there's a break at the end of the level. And it's mainly just him sitting in a very lo-fi setting, essentially more or less where Ben and I are sitting, with his computer. Just a lot of comments on the hands that he's going to play, the hands he's not going to play, talking through out loud what his thoughts are on different hands, and also answering questions from the chat. So yeah, I mean, I'm not uber familiar with Twitch streams. There's only like 1 or 2 Twitch streamers I really follow with any regularity, and they're just chalking streamers. So it's kind of similar to what Jamie's doing. But these streamers tend to have better camera equipment. They're a little bit more knowledgeable about what to say and what not to say on a stream. Not that Jamie says anything inappropriately, but it's just a lot of less than necessary comments he makes throughout, just commenting on hands that he's going to fold, which are very obvious folds, like 6-5 offsuit or something when you're in early position. And yeah, I mean, Jamie definitely, as time goes on, I think it's a little bit better in terms of how he talks and answers questions and all that. But yeah, I mean, it definitely has a bit of a, I don't want to be mean, an old man on the internet quality, in that there's a lot of technical errors throughout these streams. The stream gets muted at several occasions for no reason. Jamie forgets where buttons are on the screen. He gets folded out on hands because he runs out of time. Just a lot of just like little things that I consider to be kind of like charming and ironically funny. But I could understand would be frustrating for people. And we'll get into each stream in more detail and talk about his results and all that. But yeah, I mean, I am a big Jamie Gold fan. I've mentioned this I think I mentioned this on the podcast before. He's my favorite poker player of all time. His '06 main event performance is the single most entertaining performance in the history of tournament poker. And I just find his life story and his personality and his other performances very interesting. So, I mean, I was eating all this up, just hearing him talk about all the things he talked about. But I can understand that, a lot of people don't like Jamie Gold, not unjustifiably. So I can understand why this content might not be for everybody.
Well, I want to quickly just ask you because you've mentioned Jamie Gold's favorite player for a very long time, and I'm very curious because for the most part, I mean, the majority of our ability to watch him play really came a little bit this year, and then in '06 and '07. But we've had now a good 15 plus years of other players for you to watch. So I'm curious why, what about him maintains that number one spot on your sort of favorite players when we've had a lot of content from other players over the years, Hellmuth and Grano, just to name two, for example, that we've seen pretty regularly every year.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, first off, it's just how absurd the '06 run was. I mean, keep in mind that at the time, this was the biggest tournament of all time, 8,773 players in the main event for the biggest cash prize of all time. And whoever won it would have been the number one all-time money leader of all time. And Jamie was the chip leader pretty much almost uninterrupted from day three, the end of day three onward. He went wire to wire at the final table. Just the absurdity of this guy pulling off like the most dominant performance in tournament poker of all time on the biggest level of all time. And he has that character and he has that temperament. And he did all those antics all throughout the '06 main event. And how he's more or less kept the same strategies after the main event to much less success is just kind of interesting to me. It's like Russell Hantz from Survivor, right? Like in Survivor Samoa, he plays the most aggressive game of Survivor of all time. He gets to the end, and then he plays the same game over and over again to diminishing results. And it's just like he like runs like a bull through a china shop through Survivor. And Jamie Gold's the same way. He runs like a bull through a china shop through poker. And again, there have been players, like Daniel Negreanu who use table talk, but nobody uses it in the way that Jamie does. Like he just comes off as, like little like peppering comments and, these aggressive tactics that he has with his, telling people what his hand is, telling people, do you have the balls to call me? Things like that we just don't see from other players. And, Will Kassouf, I suppose, comes closest to Jamie. But I don't know, like Jamie just comes off as, I don't know, like a little bit slicker than Will is, a little bit more sort of fun, like naturally funnier than Will Kassouf is. So it just kind of works for me better than Will Kassouf.
Fair enough.
So yeah.
Yeah, so going back to these talks about these streams here, I had a lot of the same issues with the repetitive nature of his commentary on his play. Just little things, obviously the tech issues, which really kind of never really go away in all four streams. They pop up every now and then. I think Jamie also tends to kind of over narrate certain things like, here we have he gets dealt like 8 deuce. Oh, we have 8 high here. We're gonna fold. I don't like him saying 8 high instead of 8-2 or like 6-5 to 6 high. Like just don't call it. It just kind of irks me. I wouldn't describe my hand that way. So that tends to kind of bother me a little bit. And probably the best part of these streams is just seeing him talk about various topics that we kind of picked up on in the '06, '07 main events. Things like Eric Molina, his winnings controversy, just little things like that we, and this sort of on our podcast is prime talking points for us. But I think it's fair to go over what this entire stream was meant to accomplish in that there was sort of this sort of contest where if you played in the same event as Jamie Gold and then outlasted him, you would get an entry into sort of a sweepstakes contest type thing, and a winner would win, I think, a prize of like a seat in like another event. I don't think it was the main event though, right? Wasn't it like a 50K event or something?
I think it was a heads up match against Jamie.
Oh, excuse me. Yes, heads up match against Jamie. So, but there was kind of this what's the right word? Sort of unclear clarification was if since these tournaments usually had rebuys, was it after if you rebought, if you didn't rebuy, was it after the rebuy period was over? Was it if Jamie Gold's out of the tournament first and then you're still in, or what was the? And we never quite get an answer in that first stream until Jamie Gold actually misses his chance to rebuy. If you don't rebuy right after you lose and the timer ticks out, you're gone. You can't rebuy. Which is, I think, kind of a silly thing. I mean, obviously, I think they try to put you at the same table after you rebuy, but nonetheless, I don't see why they had designed it that way. And so this first stream was 3.5 hours long. I watched all the way to 2x speed. I'm sure you did probably something similar to save a lot of time. And there was no sound at all for the first 10 minutes of this stream. And even and because the chat was on like a 5-minute delay, because this entire thing was broadcast on like a 5-10 minute delay, when people comment in the comments of like the Twitch chat, they're referring to things that happened like minutes ago, and so it's out of tune with what Jamie Gold's seeing on the screen. So it just really leads to a lot of like Jamie Gold misinterpreting what the comments are referring to, and so that was really kind of annoying too.
Yeah, it's again just very sort of low budget setup. I mean, it's interesting that they picked Gold of all people to do this contest and have this partnership with. Again, I find him an amicable person, so I suppose that's why they picked him to do all the streaming stuff. But yeah, it's a very sort of just strange stream to watch. And he does answer some questions about 06, and he talks about you go a couple of times where he tried to help a friend, referring to the top hand, which he refers to multiple times on every single stream. Like he'll read a comment that says like, "Oh, top," and he'll kind of laugh along to it. But yeah, for the most part, it's really just him explaining his hands, what his thought process are, which can be helpful to a certain extent when he actually plays a hand, why he's making these raises, why he doesn't like limping in, why he doesn't like min raises. That's all cool, except he breaks his own rules quite a few times. Like he'll say like, "I don't normally do min raises," and then he'll min raise, which he does several times throughout. Again, just really sort of strange stuff. I mean, he plays mainly good hands. He gets kings, he gets ace queen, he'll defend a big blind, sometimes with hands like 2-5, but then also like other times he'll play like with king 4 off and other hands like that. So it's kind of hard if you're trying to learn with him. It's kind of hard to pick up on what exactly his style is besides just be aggressive.
Yeah, he really kind of like the main purpose for Jamie Gold is not to make money so much in these events. I mean, he wants to win to some degree, but he really kind of took this stream opportunity as an approach to like educate the audience. And I don't really feel like he was being all that advanced in his sort of poker lessons. I mean, he only ever bets using the buttons on the WSP.com app or on the computer, I guess. So he picks like half pot, 3/4 pot, whatever. So he's not like he's just sort of clicking buttons versus tailor making each individual bet, which is probably a good thing considering that he had like multiple screens. So if he like was typing numbers, maybe he would have gone to the wrong thing. I don't know. I wouldn't trust him to competently run this multi-computer screen thing. So maybe it was for the better that he used the buttons. But then because he did that, he kind of handcuffed what kind of diverse plays he was doing in any given hand. And not to mention, probably one of the bigger gripes he had was that he constantly takes inventory, which just means he sees how many big blinds he has and how many minutes to the next level. And because online events are usually kind of turbo, fast structures, whatever, he kind of had this mentality where like if he had 20 big blinds, he was like like shove or fold mode, which I mean it got me thinking about turbos online. And because the blind is so fast, I can see some merit of trying to keep your stack above a certain number of big blinds, maybe more than if it was live. Like in live poker, maybe 10 big blinds would have been my level. Online, the way he describes it, I was definitely open to that idea because even if just taking the blinds here and there, with the blinds going up so fast, you're going to get short, pretty quickly anyway. So it kind of makes sense to kind of have a higher barrier of when to sort of take that mentality. But even then, I feel like then he was giving away potential, EV by like shoving aces or 20 big blinds and only getting the blinds when maybe if he plays a little bit differently, he gets a little more. So I mean, it's a balance, obviously. That was my thought.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, it's in terms of this as an educational tool, it's I'd say it's mixed at best.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I mean, again, in terms of like the insights that he provides in between hands, like, yeah, it mentions a lot that he doesn't like min raising, even though he's pressing all these buttons. He also talks a lot about magical thinking, how, if you have 9-8 and you fold and the flop comes out 9-9-8, you shouldn't be upset that, you would have flopped a boat, which I guess is a fair point to make. But yeah, it's nothing that's super dynamic. I mean, I think most professional poker players would have that mindset already. Just yeah, I mean, and every now and again he'll talk about things like high stakes poker, or he tells a story about Jamie, not Doyle Brunson, talking to him and telling him that he had a lot of heart, but he needs to pick his spots. So it's like little moments like that that I think are nice, and could elicit further in conversation. But then it's just kind of on to the next hand.
I agree, and also he does mention he sort of tells the story of his arrangements in the '06 main event, and I don't know. I feel like this many years later, I mean, the way he tells it, I'm definitely more convinced that it was accurate compared to the brief sort of half of the story we got in '07, where he says like we settled it. Everyone says it took 6 months. It actually took one day. Like we laughed so hard at that interview in '07 main event day 1D. Here, I actually think that if the story that Jamie tells us is 100% the truth, and I'm fairly confident it is, I completely side of Jamie where the guy wanted $6 million, which is pre-tax half of the winnings. Like it doesn't make any sense. And if that's really what happened, it really is a shame that Jamie Gold kind of got slandered so much, because and again, it wasn't even like a contract, or it was like a handshake thing. And so the fact that Jamie Gold honored it, if that's all true, then my loyalty lies in Jamie with his half of the argument.
Yeah, he's told this a similar story on other podcasts and in other streams. He tells this story, the same story, a couple times throughout the other episodes, and he stayed consistent in his details. I mean, I remember when I was researching for the '06 main event that I stumbled across some court document from his lawyers saying that he wasn't going to pay Crispin Laser at some point. I'd have to go and look at the court documents again. I'm not sure, but yeah, I mean, it's possible he's telling the truth. It's possible that he's cutting out details that don't seem beneficial to him. I mean, again, I just don't know in terms of that. I just personally would never make a deal like he did. I would try to put things in writing, not just have a handshake agreement. Yeah, it's a strange case for sure. Somebody should look into it and write an article about it, because I think do like a serial style podcast on it. I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, and you mentioned that he said he wasn't going to pay it all, but I wonder if that came after like the guy sued him for like $6 million. Like
Yeah.
if you have a deal and then someone like like an informal deal, and someone like acts aggressive towards you, you're less inclined to want to accept to own up to what you think is your half of the deal anyway. So it's kind of like you can take it or leave it, and they didn't take it, so you get nothing. It's kind of so that might be we don't know the timeline of when he said he wasn't going to pay him, if that was the truth. But in any case, I definitely feel less or more empathy for Jamie, because I kind of believe him. I don't think he's lying about this. It seems it'd be silly at this point to lie. That it's settled. That it's now almost 20 years later. So I feel like he's has no motivation to lie about it now. So that's just me.
Yeah, again, we don't know the full story. We'd have to look into it. So
Right.
we're not gonna cast any dispersions on him.
No. And so the second stream, a little bit longer, 5.5 hours, a $400 bracelet event. So again, I think the previous event was just like some random tournament on the website, not like a bracelet event. So again, with a bracelet on the line, a bit more, I guess, importance in the grand scheme of things. I mean, obviously, when winning a bracelet is an online event, some poker pros thrash the value of an online bracelet. I'd take it. I don't care if it's live, online. I'll take it all the same. And so with this one, again, he busts about 3 hours into the tournament. So again, not putting up a very good display. I mean, he wins a few hands here, but I don't know. I wasn't really impressed by his play or his analysis in this. I feel like if I was streaming and I was playing, my commentary, my play, or what I would do wouldn't be all that different, or at least wouldn't be substantially like coming across as more amateur, and by comparison, I don't know. I just feel like it kind of stated the obvious. Like, oh, we're going to raise this. We're really happy to get it in. Like anyone could say that, and it wouldn't. It was not a Jamie Gold specific lesson.
Yeah, as I mentioned before, mainly just sort of premium stuff: Ace 10, King 9, calling from the big blind, calling from the small blind, calling min raises, whatever it might be. Yeah, nothing super insightful. I mean, because the stream's longer, there's a little bit more about advice on how to play and build your bankroll. Never play with more than 5% of your bankroll. You can find backers by putting together a package and talking to friends, things like that. But again, nothing that I don't think professionals or semi-professionals or even experienced amateurs wouldn't know about. It is kind of interesting hearing him say like the best starting flight in the main event changes from year to year. Like that's kind of a little interesting, I guess.
Yeah.
He talks a little bit about Paul Waska at one point, how they, he doesn't, how they were kind of like friends afterward. That was a little interesting. Little insights on his life too here and there. I think, is kind of interesting. He likes Arrested Development. He was, he talked about being a talent agent, things like that. So.
Yeah, and then we actually get a little bit of diversity in the second stream where after he busts, he actually joins a 2.5 and $5 cash game.
Mm-hmm.
So again, cash game poker very different from tournament poker. You tend to lose a lot of big pots of aces, and maybe other hands, you flip a set and get paid off on overpair or something like that. Jamie Gold, he buys him for 500. And he actually does pretty good. He gets up to like more than doubles his money. He ends up about a plus 600 in the cash game. So, even though a lot of it was just from he like flop tops of jacks against aces, for example. Talking about implied odds, how it's a big. You might have an overpair, but if I flop a jack, then I'm gonna the implied odds are make it worth it. Again, so a bit better, probably. Since he actually wins, it felt a bit more watchable than when he just kind of fold his way to bust in a tournament. So I guess that was kind of a good concluding hour or two of this stream, but I still didn't feel like I was learning anything from watching him play.
No, can't say I did.
Which then gets me to an interesting case for the last two streams because I accidentally watched them out of order. I watched the fourth one first and the third one after for the last two. So I guess we can still go in order though, since I'm sure you watched them in order.
Yeah, I watched them in order.
Yeah, so he played a turbo event in the third stream. So with that, again, even the non-turbo online event are still pretty fast, but just in this case, these are 5-minute levels. So that's pretty much play money tournament speed. So I'm used to it, so to speak. I'm sure you are too if you're tournament play. So with that, Jamie Gold, he definitely made it a point to see more flops in the early levels. And I will say that this one definitely flew by faster than the other streams as far as the 5 hours or so that it was, which is kind of funny given it was a turbo tournament. So you'd think it would be, it's just kind of one theme, I guess. So that was kind of funny. But he actually cashes in this event, 142nd place. So not a super deep run, but he wins enough hands with he gets unlucky here and there. But the sort of the big what the F moment for me was when he actually considered shoving queen deuce of 9 big blinds. Like what?
Yeah.
After all the talk about like these are folds here and there, he actually considers it. I thought it pretty wild.
Yeah, there's also just some antics in the chat that were going on, like people in the chat calling him the worst player ever, and someone asked him who the most handsome player was and said that he got flustered at the question. So there's definitely a little bit more prickliness this time around that made it kind of funny. And again, a few more insights here and there into how he played no six. That after day 3, thought he was going to win. He also apparently made one of the sickest calls in his life on day 1 with bottom set against a straight and a flush on board. So yeah, again, little insights here and there, but yeah, it's hard to tell. It's hard to just to glean from his gameplay what exactly his style is now and what exactly you can learn from him. Again, that's not like a huge fault of his own. I mean, there's some things he could be doing better, but this is his third stream, so maybe as time will go on, he'll get better. But
yeah, and then after he busts, he plays a little bit of an Omaha PLO cash game, 5 and 10 for the blinds, and he actually loses a pretty big pot in the first hand, and then wins a bit back after turning down for most of the stream. At that point, again, I PLO. I think it's a fun game. My experience is really just limited to some PokerStars play money time. I know obviously I bubbled the medals for the PLO heads up for the MSO this year, so. I don't want to think that heads up. I got a pretty good PLO game compared to maybe a full ring. I mean, I just have not enough patience and like a full table for Omaha. But again, it flew by a bit faster than the other longer streams. So I was happy about that. The comments made things a bit more interesting, I suppose. But it kind of ho hum, which leads us into the final of these 4 streams. Go for Gold number 4, 5.5 hours. Bracelet event number 10, a deep stack. And then again, probably even more egregious in this one are the continued accidental mic mutings in this, where it happens, he doesn't notice it, and then it takes forever until the comments can tell him that you're muted because of the delay. So it's pretty annoying. And Jamie Gold just kind of chips down at the very start of the action, and then from there he does talk a bit about Molina and Cunningham from '06. So that was kind of cool, but he actually busts Brad Owen on his first bullet, which is kind of crazy. And then he doesn't really have any luck until his second rebuy in this multiple rebuy tournament, where he actually went to a stack finally.
Yeah, I mean, again, just at one point there was a commenter who said you need to delete system 32 on your computer, and Jamie didn't get the joke and was like, oh, I should tell my tech buddy about that. For those of you who don't know, if you delete system 32 on a Windows computer, it kills your computer. It's an old meme that was been on the internet. There's like stories on 4chan of 4chan users tricking each other and deleting system 32. So yeah, just again, it just has this like old man on the internet vibe to it that I really like. That, you know, I again find endearing. Yeah, again, more, you know, I think he's a little bit more comfortable talking to the audience. He talks about Cabral briefly. He talks about his bracelet and gives the story oddly that he gave it to a friend, but he can't say what happened to it, even though I'm pretty sure he sold it, didn't he, for tax reasons or something?
Maybe he sold it to his friend, and he was just sort of like, you know, washing the story a little bit for, you know, for a public ear.
Yeah, I mean, I recall him doing an interview. Yeah, it says here on Poker News that he his bracelet was sold to Heritage Auctions for $65,000. So I don't know. I mean,
maybe his friend runs that company. I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of a weird.
I don't know. Or maybe he bought it back later and then had it. I don't know. I think it's a long time ago, so
Yeah.
there's obviously a story there, and somebody has it. I mean, it's not like it just vanished off the face of the earth. It's a very valuable piece of jewelry that I'm sure any Pawn Stars contestant could want to sell there. So, in any case, Jamie just kind of up and down, busts relatively, you know, middle of the tournament, 5.5 hours in, nothing special. He didn't really pull off any fancy like plays or bluffs that went on multiple streets. He might have like c-bet once or bluffed one street and then just sort of gave up or something like that. So again, I wasn't really all that impressed by his play. Obviously, he cashed in one out of like 4 tournaments, but it wasn't, you know, it was obviously net negative given the multiple buy-ins and bullets he bought in for. So again, kind of a ho-hum outcome. I mean, he had obviously the main event cash, so that, you know, is still pretty impressive, even if it was relatively early on day 4. But it's kind of funny, so whenever you suggest content for our podcast, it always seems like I tend to hate it more than the majority of the other stuff we review, like Tilt, these streams here, maybe 1 or 2 of the documentaries that you recommended. So I'm on guard for next time you give me a recommendation. But I have to I can only compare these to the only other poker streams I've watched, which would have been a few years ago for Mattisau and Negreanu, when they were in the, I think it was like in the pandemic year when they were most of the bracelet events during that, where again they're a bit more entertaining as people, I think, for me, as far as just, you know, when they're in front of the camera just talking to themselves, so to speak, or to the viewers. I think they're a bit better. Mattisau with his propensity to fly off the handle very easily, and Grano is just kind of a very charismatic, great, joking kind of guy. So he kind of gets into that streaming vibe a bit better. And I actually watched a couple of poker streams just separately, randomly online, because there were the WSOP circuit online events happening like last week. So I watched a couple there, and I actually watched a guy at a circuit event online final table go from last place with 8 left to win the whole thing.
Oh wow, cool.
And it was pretty remarkable, honestly, seeing that. So you know, and even though these guys weren't really streaming for the purpose of education, it was more for just, you know, showing off their skills and seeing if they can, you know, go for gold. In this case, I struck gold. You know, again, these gold streams really kind of, you know, lack by comparison. So you know, if Jamie Gold did a sequel roster of these events, I would maybe consider watching if they were live. But if I was only watching replay, I probably would too.
Yeah, I would want to watch them live. I think it would be cool, and also ask him questions and try to get answers about things. That'd be kind of fun. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would recommend these or not. It depends. If you're a gold purist connoisseur like I am, you can watch them. Otherwise, you can just skip them. You know, there's not too many insights about his life or about his poker style that he can really glean from them. Yeah, I mean, my recommendations, you know, Tilt, Inside Underground Poker, these streams. I mean, I'm just killing it in terms of it. So yeah, I'll gear up for next.
And so again, I think if you add up all of the collective hours of these 4 streams we had, I think it's about 20 hours more or less if you add them together.
Something
So
like that.
again, 10 hours if you watch at 2x speed like us. I feel like you could probably, if you compressed these streams into like highlights, maybe like 20 minutes, you know, edited down in 20 minutes for each stream, wouldn't be that bad probably. There's enough, you know, crazy runouts or Jamie Gold stories that you could probably, you know, have a solid, you know, 80 minutes of highlights, and I would have watched that and probably enjoyed it pretty solidly. But as is, definitely a skip for me.
Yeah, I mean, Jamie talked about at one point starting his own YouTube channel for like even like food and travel videos and stuff, which I would really like to see because I'm curious to see him review restaurants and stuff. That'd be kind of interesting. So yeah, I mean, hopefully he'll keep making stuff and get better. But from what I see thus far, it's not great.
So I think that only leads us to our final talking point today. This is something, you know, we've joked over the years, like this is our long-awaited episode of Rounders, our long-awaited trip to Vegas. We have the literally the longest thing that we have waited for this podcast from before this we even begin episode 0. We have our logo for our podcast drawn by a friend of mine, a Twitch streamer of both art and video games, Aiuner. They were nice enough to draw us our custom logo. You can actually see on Twitch the stream of the creation of this logo, step by step, color by color, with us sort of providing our requests bit by bit. And so I'm going to show the logo to you guys. Here we go. And
Drum roll.
there it is.
Yeah, I really like it. It's just I just love it.
Yes, this began as a simple sketch done by Aiuner, and now this is in its full final glory. So this will be uploaded to all of our social media platforms to share. And you know, maybe someday we'll have a T-shirt or some sort of clothing hat or something just to kind of have the logo on something. And so again, thank you so much for your hard work risking carpal tunnel and dealing with our very low key requests for you know, specific points of the design. You can I'll provide a link to Aiuner's Twitch channel for anyone who wants to see how this all began. And just, you know, again, it's kind of a Twitch themed episode anyway, so it's on point. So there you go, everybody.
Yeah, and Aiuner streams fairly regularly, I think multiple times a week. So feel free to check out their streams. I think they do one art stream and one video game stream a week or something like that.
I think every week can be different, but nonetheless, that's kind of the fun of Twitch. You never know what you're going to see when you're watching. And so, with that, guys, thank you for sticking around to the end of this episode. We again always fun to talk about new stuff and unveil this how this podcast that began as this little thing is slowly growing into its full potential here with this amazing logo. So hopefully you guys you enjoyed our talk of the main event and of Jamie Gold. If you have any comments, suggestions, requests, let us know in the comments section. Again, I'm working on it. Hopefully, maybe an interview at some point later in the summer or fall. You never know. They're always so much fun. And if you want to be on our future episode of our podcast, let us know. We're happy to have anybody in the poker world join us for a few minutes or an hour or 2 or 3.
Yep, and we're up for any suggestions you have. We're happy to do Twitch streams. We're happy to do YouTube streams, vlogs, whatever works. We're looking for any ideas. Ben and I are deciding on what the ideas will be for the next couple episodes soon. So yeah, we'll be getting that content out as soon as we can.
Until next time, guys, enjoy your poker, enjoy your TV, and enjoy your poker on TV.
Take care, everyone.